Hello everyone, nice to meet you all. The 2021 Jeju is being held. We have the very special and meaningful session. I'd like to say thank you for all participants. I'm OG1, MC for this session. Nice to meet you all. 네. From now on, we'll begin the session. For this session, we have moderator Jin Hee-jong. He is a lecturer at the Jeju National University, and he is an advisor to Special Self-Governing Province Promotion Group, and he is actively working as advisors for various organizations. And also, he is a member of audit group for Special Self-Governing Province of Jeju. And also, he is working as an MC for some organization. I'd like to give the floor to Jin Hee-jong. Please welcome him with a big hand. Hello everyone, I'm Jin Hee-jong, moderator for this session. Today's session is about the revising of the Jeju Special Act. When some changes happens, then the target and the vision would be changed accordingly. So the Jeju province is talking about the revising of the Jeju Special Act, and the discussion is ongoing. So it means that it is the main agenda for Jeju province at this time. And with this meaningful agenda, it is my great pleasure to have in-depth discussion with experts. We have keynote speaker Ko Young-kwon. And also, we have Lee Kyung-yong, council member of Jeju Special Self-Governing Provincial Council. And we have Kang Byun-sam, manager of Jeju Bar Association. And Yoon Won-soo, research fellow of Jeju Research Institute, is attending. And especially, we have a journalist, Ai Sakajo, a correspondent at Tokyo Shimbun. From Vice Governor, we will listen to his presentation. Nice to meet you all. I'm a Vice Governor for Political Affairs of Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. Welcome and thank you all for being here at this 16th Jeju Forum. For this session, I'd like to introduce some issues and prospects for all-out revision of Jeju Special Act as exemplary cases of decentralization. The Jeju Special Act is providing the basis and fundamental spirit for Jeju Island. In 2006, the Jeju Special Act was established, and with that, Jeju has become exemplary cases for decentralization. So it's been 15 years since Jeju Special Self-Governing Province was established. And also, we improved our institutions to take the lead in decentralization trend of Korea. And recently, Green New Deal and COVID-19 measures and the fourth industrialization, and in terms of all those changes, we are preparing for revising Jeju Special Act. When the Special Self-Governing Province was established, the decentralization was based on functions, but we need to acquire our rights for tax and some institutions. So in that regard, we are preparing for transferring authorities on organization and operation. By doing so, we will gain some determination of Jeju residents, and also this revision would lay a foundation for the further developed Jeju. And in 2006, we were assigned our authority as a special self-governing province, and we proved that we could work as a special self-governing province with our own rights. And by doing so, we set some cornerstone, and self-governing has become the center of the operation of the Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. For the first time within the nation, we established our own self-governing province system, and also we adopted direct election of residents, and also we set an audit group for our province, and also we waived visa system for some foreigners, and also we expanded investments, and we acquired more investment from foreign organizations, and also we nurture tourism industries, and also we set and established some institutions and rules in the context of Jeju Island. And we have been trying to establishing our special acts based on the circumstances of Jeju. The decentralization of Jeju Special Act made us possible to implement our own plan. And also thanks to the efforts of the residents, we could make success. And this successful case, I think, is widespreading across the nation. So we are going to come up with institutional support for the Jeju residents. Some revising bills for the Jeju Special Act is covering 39 tasks. About the tasks, the legal deliberation is ongoing, and by the revision this time we could deal with clean and some more projects will be developed. After deliberation, these bills for revision will be submitted. Also, we allow assigning some projects to private sectors, and also we will enhance our capabilities and expertise. By doing so, we strengthened our administrative capability, and also we gained more funds for rural areas, and also we were assigned our rights to operation in line with our circumstances of Jeju. And when combining for M&A of casino business, the advanced approval system is adopted. And also we came up with some special rules for organizing and creating global nature-oriented city of Jeju. By doing so, we would like to lay a foundation for making Jeju cleaner.
For the past 15 years, Jeju self-governing province have made such effort. Based on this performance made so far, last December, there was an amendment of municipality law in order to strengthen the function and authority of the special self-governing provinces municipality. Jeju Special Self-Governing Province has conducted advanced model of decentralization, but in order to achieve our vision, there are many tasks to be solved. For example, we need to have substantial actual authority over the taxation authority, and as such, Jeju special self-governing province have a lot of challenges and tasks to be solved, and we need some improvement. As we launch the special self-governing province, the existing cities, 4 cities and county districts were eliminated, and we need to improve our communication with our residents. So we had the system of direct election of the mayor, and there have been a lot of requests and requirements for improving the administrative activities of Jeju. And we need to have the representativeness as the basic municipality. So far, we have conducted the administration, but that requires improvement, and grassroots-based democracy and autonomy should be enhanced so that our residents can make decisions for themselves in a more sovereign way. And we need to work on regulation and soften the regulation and attract further investment so that we can have positive effect of attracting more tourists, for example, but that could lead to imbalance in economy and environmental destruction due to the industrial development. So the core value of the future is a clean and fair Jeju, and we need to set the direction for the future of Jeju. In order to solve these challenges, last year, Jeju made announcement on clean Jeju and raised issues with large-scale development and suggested improvement measures. And in the sectors of new renewable energy and water resource usage, Jeju will redefine the structure of the industries and innovate the logistic systems as well. So it will strengthen the basis for economic innovation. In Jeju, we are aware of these issues and efforts. So we need to realize the residents' sovereignty to finally complete the true Jeju special self-governing province. And we are discovering core tasks to be conducted. That's why we are announcing the top 5 strategies here. These are the contents of the strategy. First of all, we're going to define the value and vision that's in accordance with the identity of Jeju. In 2005 and in 2006, the Jeju special law was conducted. So becoming free international city was the core vision of Jeju. And however, that has actually caused sprawl development across the island, and we also were faced with limitations. Regarding the free international city vision, some residents are making complaints and criticizing this. And creating free international city could actually create some sources of income for our residents. So how are we going to realize this vision is important. So based on our achievements made to achieve the vision of free international Jeju, we need to put strategies into practice, and we need to respect the value of peace, environment, and human rights. And also, we need to develop Jeju City into the city of culture, smart transportation, and so on. The cleanness, coexistence, peace, and human rights are the key values of Jeju City's future. And by abiding by these principles, we can make contribution to the country as well. Secondly, we need to strengthen the residents' autonomous decision-making right. And for this, we're going to prepare institutional foundation. Jeju Island's decentralization model is aimed at realizing the sovereignty right of our residents. In terms of the composition of organizations and type of organizations, we need to make sure the residents' sovereignty is reflected, and through autonomous system among residents, we need to enhance the sovereignty rights of the residents. Centered around the village centers and community network, we will enhance the decentralized model centered around our residents. And we will try to rationally improve the issues related to authority allocation, and we will try to reflect the willingness and voices of our residents in our administration. Thirdly, we will propose the direction of decentralization. Compared to the original purpose we had, the progress in securing municipal decentralization has been slow. So far we talked about the financial decentralization tasks, and in order to secure autonomous financial system, we have to make further efforts. Regarding Jeju decentralization model, we have to reflect the opinion of the residents. And regarding we have to move beyond just simply transferring the tax revenues, but we need to improve the overall institutions surrounding the system. So the decentralization model should take its root as advanced model of financial decentralization. And in pursuing the decentralization, in the long term, we will have to receive the full transfer of authority over the financial decentralization. This plan will be conducted in a gradual way. And there are foundation for this.
The central government are coming up with some special measures, so we have to set some ground, like set some basis for that. And also the decentralization of finance, we have to come up with some innovative measures. So also we have to manage the finance, gain financial resources to work with relevant organization, and also we will push for our plan. The fourth, industrialization, democratic changes, and climate changes. For those very fast changing environment, we will come up with some institutional improvement. Over the last 10 years, we implemented carbon-free island 2030. And so renewable energy and wind power and electrical vehicle distribution, we led those kind of initiatives in this island. In order to nurture the Jeju's green industry, we have to set some regulations based on eco-friendly measures. Energy, water, and IT technologies. We have to nurture some innovative industry, and also we have to do some innovate in terms of those industries. And we have to overcome the economic crisis derived from COVID-19, and we have to aggressively and actively respond to those changes. Fifth, and also we have to acquire some rights for taxes, and we will come up with the second tier progress measures in order to gain quality for self-governing process, and we will be guaranteed in terms of our decision, and we will turn to inclusive decision-making process, and we will set some environment and circumstances to set the basis for those process. In order to complete the model, advanced model, we need to work with a central government. The target and the plan, the details plan, we have to readjust based on Jeju's characteristics, and also we have to adjust our plan and process as well. The self-governing supporting group, we will set and organize those permanent organization for that to complete autonomous system of Jeju. That's what we have prepared for the Jeju self-governing process. In order to complete this autonomous system, those are something that we have to take care about. Not only this. In the long term, we have to have work on some process. We will review decentralization of special law of Jeju. Since establishment, the Jeju's special self-governing law is including regulations and some legal process. So there are repeated requests to adjust and revise the law. So we have to divide the law into 2 or 3 parts. In the long term, we have to divide the law to review the relations with the central constitution to come up with very systemized and organized legal system. That's what we are thinking about today. With the central government, relevant organization and ministries, and the public consensus. In terms of the legislation process, we will prepare for revising the laws. And constitutional concern is also need. The legislation, the tax acceptance, and also we were promised to have our own rights. In terms of the revision of constitution, this autonomous rights was guaranteed. However, in the revised constitution did not reflect this decentralization of Jeju law. When we adopt that decentralized law, Jeju will consultate with the ministries of the government. However, whenever Jeju requested to have discussion, the ministry did not accept our request. But in order to implement stable operation of the law, actually Jeju needs some rights of kind of constitutional rights. The constitutional right of Jeju, we need to stipulate the exclusive legal rights. It includes legal development and culture and those things which cannot be stipulated by the local government, and it will be stipulated in the revised constitution. The main theme of Jeju포럼, if we want to set the permanent peace, we have to have the Jeju residents to make decision by themselves and they move forward by themselves. In order to that end, we need some important and active role of locals constitution. In order to set the target, we need to revise the self-governing law of Jeju as well. Decentralization. Based on that, the self-governing province of Jeju, we will nurture IT and manufacturing ultimately to reinvent itself as a green province. And we will take the lead as a model province. Based on today's discussion, I hope we could get input from the residents and the civic group to make Jeju better and further develop. Thank you for your listening. Thank you for your valuable remarks. You prepared a lot. It was very in-depth. And over the last 15 years, Jeju special self-governing, its achievement and its result was reassessed. And he proposed the vision for Jeju. The theme is quite inclusive and broad, but in a very short time, we had listened to your invaluable time, and we will listen to discussant's opinion. And I will give 7 minutes for each discussant. And if we have few more minutes, then we will receive questions from online for further discussion. And we will wrap up this session afterwards. The first discussant is Aisaka. I will give 7 minutes to Jo Aisaka. Nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you all. I'm Aisaka O. Thank you for inviting me. During this morning, I participated in this forum and I talked. In the middle of 2000, I entered the journalist company and I worked as a journalist, started working journalist there. Nagahyun. The reproduction, that's what I am interested in. So this time, self-governing. In this session focusing on self-governing, it is my great pleasure to present in this session. As a newcomer, as a journalist, like less than 500 people, companies of those people were my interest. The provincial 47 existing, let's 700 in total. There are 1,700 in total. Compared to Korea, in terms of number, very small self-governing I studied. Among them, the small self-governing, the theme was that I was in charge of. Also, there is some sort of self-governing which is in the crisis of disappearing. It was a self-governing system. In 60s and 70s, agricultural and forests were very in fashion in that region. In foreign nations, however, import increased. So that region were declined. Jobs was falling short, and the youth go out to bigger city, and they didn't come back. Aging, the 25% of populations are aged. In those provinces, like 40% of provinces were having 25% of aging population. In Korea, I've heard that Korea is struggling with aging population as well. But the aging rate is just 15% in Korea. If the aging rate is 40%, it is a really high, cannot imaginable. The tax revenues decrease. The financial status is falling down as well. So there are more and elderly than the younger. So it was led to higher cost for welfare system. There's no children, and some elementary, middle school are closing down. In the middle of this status, the county was not giving up. The residents and officials in the province, I saw them a lot. They worked really hard to save their town. For big cities, some lot was provided to the elderly. And also, the land was devastated. So they get some ships on the ground. So I saw some project to raise ships on the ground. And officials and residents there, and there were some elderly people living alone. I visited their houses and they spent time together with the elderly. The governor of Nagano, he, she drove 3 hours away to visit some village leader, to meet village leader. I saw all the projects with, like, I'm not sure whether we have to do to that extent, but in order to keep the small county or province, we have to do that. I think it is the idea was very serious and sincere. Some people from rural area, they go to big city. If they come back to, if they go back to the bigger city, we call it coming back. I've heard that more people are coming back to the rural area, and also the housing prices are going up, surging in cities. So to live in big cities, it costs a lot, and more people are starting thinking that I want to have some dignified life in rural areas. But it requires communication if you want to live in rural areas. To industrial complex in some province, uh, some rural area hosts industrial complex or destination for travelers. The local universities also, they work with local governments to implement some joint project. Yesterday in Seoul, the self-governing officials of Japan living in Seoul, I had lunch with them. The 9 self-governing province dispatched 9 officials in Seoul to coordinate some sister city relations. So also some product from the small county of Japan is sold in Seoul by the project of them. A young official I met yesterday, they graduated universities in their hometowns and they started working as official of the self-governing province to revitalize the province. They are working very hard, so I'm touched. The decentralization of Japan in terms of medical service, actually the self-governing is very difficult in terms of assignments. There were some criticism during COVID-19. The self-governing medical center is also operated. The earth, the catastrophic earth in Japan in the past, there were a lot of things to take care of in terms of responding to the aftermath of earthquake. So the officials saw many people's dead body after the earthquake. So self-governing, we have to revitalize the self-governing province. That is the most important challenges, I think. Thank you. Aisaka, your experiences in Nagano, and I think we have many things in common with Jeju in terms of aging as well. The officials and some young people engaging in surviving the province, I think we have to follow suit as well. And I will give 7 minutes to Yoon Han Soo. I'm Yoon Won Soo from Jeju Research Institute. I'd like to extend my gratitude to the Vice Governor for taking time for this session and many Kwang Kyung-sang lawyers and Aisaka. Thank you all for presenting and taking time. And thank you, Ko Jong-sok, for presiding this session. These are something very familiar to all of you. Jeju, on 1st July, we launched Jeju's special self-governing province and the special law of Jeju set some basis for the special self-governing province. In this initiative, we wanted to get some legal rights, and we want to lift regulations to develop itself to international city. But while legislating the special law, there was some justification issues and also some issues of self-governing provinces. So I'm not sure that we really set very special law. And based on the Article 19 of special law, we are pushing for changing the process. And also we went through 6 processes of changes, and we received the authority from the central government. And also by doing so, we ground some basis for the development of Jeju province. And experiences and achievement of Jeju in 32 years, it took a very important role to revise the self-governing law. and our efforts were highly recognized. Within the region, revising the law, the self-governing system was undermined. So in this regard, Jeju and the council of the province, we want to acquire our status. So we work together to get the authority. So our efforts was led to this session, I think. The vice governor talked about the current status of the system and focused on the self-governing process complete based on the 5 major auditions. And about that, I have something to tell you. The current status are divided into 2 stages: strengthening our self-governing system and also lifting some regulations to develop it into international city. About 4,000 revision, lifting some regulations and gaining our self-decisioning rights. That is something that we are focusing on. As the vice governor said, we have to revise the system. However, that efforts was getting lowered. Even though we put efforts, we didn't success because we were not able to discuss with the central government. But over the last 15 years, we have put a lot of efforts working with the central and provincial governments. I think that's something that we have to be recognized.
So secondly, I would like to talk about contentious issues of the Special Act for the identity that repeats the characteristics of Jeju province, and also the need for talking about it, and also principle of coexistence as well. And about identifying that issue as a contentious issues are very valuable. And I would like to talk about 2 things related to that. First of all, value and vision that befits the identity of characteristics of Jeju. I've been running the Jeju province for several years, and there's a heavy criticism from residents over autonomy of a resident, because there are more focus placed on the autonomy of the Jeju province. Culture, tourism, education, and business city, all of which is related to vision of Jeju province. That's what you said. We need to go toward that direction. For the last 15 years, there are many questions thrown to residents. Jeju, special self-governing province, exists for whom? And for Korean citizens, is it really the Jeju province plays a positive role in Korea? And why does it have to be Jeju special self-governing province? In terms of recourse to make up the identity of Jeju special self-governing province, yes, it is right, but we need to establish a vision that can truly focus on the residents of Jeju province. With related to make it as an environmental policy, you mentioned about the quantity and total volume that it can accompany the tourists. And Jeju provincial residents criticize that we are being a victim of excessive development of Jeju province. Fortunately, according to Article 351 of the Special Act, there is a legal ground laid. Of course, 3 years have passed, and based on the legal ground, I think we need to talk about the better direction to pursue. And also many people talk about the accommodation of tourists, and also until when we are going to use underground water, and also until when we are going to dispose of waste. I know there are many difficulties for us to deal with. Still, we have to protect the environmental value of Jeju Island, and we need to put much input. Secondly, it is related to provincial residents, especially the rights of residents. In 2015, we have revised many acts related to direct election over the head of the local government, and we have conducted a questionnaire. We did not receive much opinions from the Jeju residents. When we conducted our referendum, there was more criticism from southern Jeju and also Seogwipo City on that. So I think we have to put much effort in order to improve the resident rights. I think there's a time constraint, so I better speed up. We are talking about the resident autonomy, citizen autonomy, which is not included in the special act. Yes, it is partly operated according to the special act, and we need more time to review it. That's why I mentioned. And 7-stage development is included in the plan by the Jeju province. And also, I think that part will surely take effect according to the revision of the act, to make sure that more rights are given to the Jeju provincial resident and more financial room for them. And we need to really think about what improvement needs to be made for citizen autonomy. And lastly, according to Article 1, the purpose of the Special Act, it regulates the principle of a citizen economy. Yes, it is welcomed. And when it is revised, the central government promoted this part, the purpose. We are going to encourage residents to participate in citizen autonomy, especially administration of Jeju residents, meaning that citizen autonomy will be realized. I think, but there are confusing parts between the words that we use. That is going beyond Autonomy Act, and which is included in the Jeju Special Act, which is welcoming. And also in terms of the establishment of a free international city, that means we are approaching the direction which enhances the citizen autonomy of Jeju residents. So I would like to thank you for that. And also from the Jeju Research Institute, we are going to spare no effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your very condensed and detailed discussion points. And basically, you mainly discussed and accepted the suggestions of the presenter's idea. And I will ask the lawyer to have your opinion and panelist. Good afternoon. My name is Kang Byung-sam, and this session is about the legislation revision. So we are co-hosting this session, but mainly it is led by the Jeju provincial authorities. So thank you for your concerted efforts for this session. So for this 7-step institutional revision and the content of it, I have about 3 opinion points and some other opinions that I want to add to it. First, when we go into the details, first is the transference of the authorities given from the central government, and also whether the efficacy of those things, and it is really positive, especially for the environment implication assessment, and that authority is transferred to the local government, but kind of action orders, the authority is still in central government. That's why we cannot rightly execute our rights. That's why in the institutional revision, it included the transference of the authority to have action or orders. That is very positive. And about the animal fowls, and that is the core resource of the Jeju Island that is controlled and managed by the Jeju Special Province. That is very positive and effective. So for that, to have the effective right for executing the right, that is something that we have to work on and develop further. And for this kind of transference and the prescription itself, the saying it is one thing, and in detailed manner, how we can give a real impact on the life of our residents and their real rights is another. So we have to think about that as well. So for example, so one of the special case that we are providing here is the to promote the Jeju Island as a place for the environment-friendly place. It has been here for about 10 years, but it has been delayed for those amount of time. And we have to see the reason behind this. What was the reason? Whether it is because of the actions, or is it because of the legislative delays? Is it because of other actions that need to be provided with? We have to think about that as well. So not only having those provisions only, but we have to have those projects and also have to see the proof of result. We have to see the step by step how it is being progressed and how it can be go further. And third, some of the content here, I can see the direction itself. The mayor is overly interrupting what is going on in the process in the council. That is somewhat worrisome. So one of the example is the casino operation. The casino, that operation and that business, that have the business that is negative connotation coming together. But that is what we are doing as a business in Jeju province. That's why in this business, in legislation, one of the major fact is the predictability. If the business people, when they want to invest it, they want to see the expectation and the predictability for their profit in the future. But if we do not have detailed standard to go together for that business, then only have that we can have additional conditions based on the decision of the council, then we don't have any substantial conditions. Then many things can be changed in the middle of the process, and people will have lower credibility and reliability about our promotion. That's why I'm not going against the pre-authorization of the casino business. I just want to say that we have to give the predictability about the business profit so that we can have this business to be successful here. So we have to listen carefully about that side as well when we revise our institutions. And one additional remark that I want to make, which is not a part of the presentation, one is that right now, decentralization, more than thousands of the authorities are given to our province from the central government. In such cases, we also have to think about the interpretation about the laws. And based on the laws and interpretation, there are room for disputes in the future. That's why to have firmly settled down those rightly and normally, that we have to, in our administration, think about the right way to have harmonious consensus among our residents and the council members and others. That means to nurture our ability to build our ability of interpretation about the law. In case of the Seoul metropolitan city, it increased about 50 lawyers to properly support the transference of the authorities from the central government and Seoul metropolitan city to the local government. Seoul metropolitan city, in terms of the comparison between the government and government in the local manner, our number of authorities is much larger than that of Seoul metropolitan city. That means we have to have our capability to interpret the laws in the rightly manner. We have to build our capability first to solve all the possible conflicts in the future. Then we can rightly have the transferring process from the central government. That is also one of the justification that we can have. And that brings me to an end of my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lawyer Kang. He is an expert in law, so that's why he referred to very detailed laws about the seven-step development plan. I think you pointed out that we are making much effort, and about the water resources, it has been very abstract about the concept, so we need to really build concrete details. And thirdly, you mentioned that about the relationship between the market and the government. We should refrain from excessive intervention from the government and leaving much of it to the market. And there were additional questions. There's a much authority transferred to the local government. And that means we need to prepare ourselves in order to reduce errors. Again, I would like to thank Lawyer Kang for presenting. And lastly, a member of the National Assembly, Lee, I would like to turn my microphone to you. Is it a question? Do I have 10 minutes? Normally, I'm given 10 minutes at the National Assembly. Thank you, Chairperson and Vice Governor Chung, and also Lawmaker Kang, and also Dr. Park, and also the journalist from Japan. It is my honor to speak before you. As a lawmaker, we talk about many things over the special act. There are two contentious issues. First one is why we should recognize its special status as the Jeju. And again, we should talk about equality between the central government in terms of a budget, in terms of laws. So then, why did we give a special status to the Jeju province? But in order to have the legal background, that means we have to revise all the acts. So those issues are colliding with each other. So we are talking about we need to put that status of Jeju into law. Then that raises the issue of equality with the other cities. So autonomous legislation right. In order to give self-determination right to residents, we have to have the legal background. And secondly, to enable that raises another issue, which is securing financial resources. For example, environmental budget according to law without revising act, as that's not reflected into our special act, we cannot do anything by ourselves. So it is related to autonomous legislation, autonomous financial execution. So direct election of the head of the local government is something that we've been continuously talking about for the last 8 years with little result. Nothing has been changed because we need to revise a special act. Then in order to do that, the central government needs to come forward along with a member of the National Assembly, which is extremely difficult. So yes, National Assembly said that they are going to revise the act in May, but with the little result. So autonomous legislation and also autonomous determination have to be stipulated by the special act. That must be done. And autonomous financial execution right is one of the many examples. For example, national tax and local tax are one of the contentious issues that we talk about a lot. And another thing is that in order to establish a free international city, much of the law are focusing on development, but we have to think about coexistence, harmony with nature, and also improvement of quality of lives of residents. That has to be also included in the special act. And that needs to be handled by Jeju Provincial Council and Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. So we have to expand our efforts in that. Thank you so much. And thank you, Lawmaker Lee. You pointed out very important issues. What's mentioned by him is that we have given the status of a special province to the Jeju province, but that raises the issues of the equality, and there are issues colliding with each other. So that means we have to guarantee the legislation rights of the Jeju province and also financial execution right of Jeju province. That needs to be done first and foremost. So for the future direction of Jeju should be environmental friendly and also human rights friendly to improve the quality of lives of a resident. It was very simple and concise and important. And now for the rest of the time, I better open up the floor to you, either receiving questions raised from the floor or online. And if then I'm given more time, then I can answer questions. Are there any questions posted online?
예. 그
So we'll wait for more questions from the floor and online. So is there anybody on the floor to ask some questions, regardless of the moderator and panelist and the presenter? You don't have to care about it. Just ask question, then we will answer it. So waiting for the question, I will ask question to the Mr. Go. It was a really short period of time, but it seems you studied a lot. So you have multidimensional points that you presented. But at the core lies Councillor Lee, and other people pointed out is that in detail, the quality of life of the residents here, we have to see the concrete measures and institutional changes to affect that. For decentralization, is it available for us to secure that decentralization under this legislative status? As I mentioned in my presentation, with various revisions in the special act, there have added lots of provisions and articles there in terms of the interpretation and execution of the laws. There have been some conflicting parts which need to be solved. But whether we can have the decentralization now under such legislative status, it's not easy for us to do it now, because we don't have everything in completion and ready. That's why we have this 7-step process for the special acts revision. One of those is to secure the decision-making authority of the resident. We have to have those authority and autonomous ability within our province. So there, within such legislation as there's a limitation to realize that. That's what I'm thinking as well. So changing just part of the words in the act itself is so difficult. You have to go through many different commissions in the central government. But here, Lawyer Kong, you are the professional in law, so it is something relevant to the Mr. Go. So our special act, it is really large in volume, lots of articles, lots of paragraph inside. It's really not easy for us to see the concrete details inside it. So maybe we can subdivide the article or action or act itself. How do you think about that possibility? I saw that part during the presentation. In our legal system, for example, the sex offenders and the act for the protection of the victim, the two acts are totally divided into two. So the people who have to abide the law can better understand that, and also during the revision itself is much easier. That's why for the special act, there are about 1,000 active laws in action in Korea. Among them, just next to the civil legislation, this is the second largest part. There should be a lot of things newly added in the special act, but for me as well, I didn't even see it in whole without seeing just detailed part that I need for my work. So the core content of what you propose, I concur, but the basic right itself, that is questionable whether we can divide it, but maybe we can set the the operation and establishment of the international free city and other things, they can be separated into two. Maybe some the small portion that is relevant with each other as a cornerstone for us, and those which we have to get the transferring from the central government, we can open that door in one act and getting new rights from the central government. That may be a possibility. I also think that this act itself is large, so we cannot see in detail. And also there are something that is identical applied to the relevant laws. There are so many things like that described in the law. So we have to follow all the lines one by one to see the details. That's why we have to reorganize it to better and efficiently use it. Yes, we know the necessity of it, but it cannot be done right away. We have to have discussion about it. But that being said, the positivity and availability about that categorization or subdivision of the act itself, that possibility, we have to leave the room open so that we can think about it further. And also, and another question is about the right of the autonomous authorities of the residents. If we have a local government with legal power, then don't you think we also have to think about the autonomous authorities of the residents? Yes, this is something that we need to discuss further. So back in 2005, we did a referendum for the first time in the country to discuss and decide this one. Back then, there were higher positive answers, a little higher than the negative answers. That's why we proceeded it. But recently, the ideas and the opinion against it is a little higher than that. That's why we have to think about this, and the importance is getting higher and higher. And the provincial council itself, we are thinking about the direct election or other ways to replace it, and also propose it to the central government, but it is a little difficult to do it right away. And also the revival of the local government, whether we need to revive it or not, is not easy for me to answer it right away. But as you said, this is a long-term vision, so we can have our democracy-based collecting opinions among residents so that we can have more opinions from the residents. To tell you the truth, in the central government, it is scrapped the local government, but we have to revise it again, then that discussion should be long and have to be discussed in depth. So what I want to say is the opinion of the residents is the most important. And the organization and the structure of the local government, it is provided to us, prescribed in the law. But we have to get approval from the Minister of the Interior and Safety because they have to review it first. Until then, they do not give us the autonomous rights. That's why the room for us to change some of the composition of our agencies, maybe get the approval from the provincial council and getting the opinions of the residents, and we can send it to the central government. And as a alternative of the idea, maybe there are other methods are being proposed. Maybe the representative agreement system that we have discussed as an alternative for a long time, maybe we can change a little bit in a large sense inside, then get another consensus from the residents. That kind of alternatives and what kind of alternative we have to discuss this.
다양한
Yes, we have to put much thoughts on various issues. So in the modern society, whether the legal and corporate entity is given to the local government is something that we have to continuously think about it. And as a lawmaker here belongs to Seogwipo city, and the restoration of local government with the corporate entity, what should we do about it? And how can we build consensus? And how can we trust from residents, do you think? I visited the Ministry of Public Administration and Security with current the lawmakers, and also I visited Director General of the Ministry of Public Administration and Security, and we told them that we want to go toward autonomous and Jeju special self-governing province. And what Director General said to us is that, according to the referendum conducted by the resident, we have conducted a system to give a status as a Jeju special self-governing province. That now it is. And in order to go back to square, in order to go back to where we began, then we have to go through all the long processes, for example, resident vote or referendum, or the process equivalent to referendum. So I thought that the ministry will listen to us. I thought it is otherwise. But he mentioned that if legislation is proposed by the member of the National Assembly, the Ministry of Public Administration and Security can and might be able to accept it. But there are so complicated interests mingled around this issue, and there are members of Assembly. Jeju should adopt a direct election, or should adopt a special status, or another system that can notify of the residents of the changes. So members of the National Assemblies are competing with each other over proposing bills. So moving away from that, I think we need to go to the direction to restore the municipalities. When we plan, execute budget, we have to ask for that to the central government, right? Because of the autonomous right. Without it, the head of the local government, when they tell us to get a budget from the central government, we pretend we go, but the budget that we want to secure cannot be secured that way. So residents think that we have to put much effort to build a consensus in order to build a friendship. But what's more important is the governor and member of the National Assembly, and above our province, there should be consensus built at a higher level. But there are so many different opinions coming together, so we have to organize the opinions. The member of the National Assembly, Lee, has a doctorate degree in law, so I think he gave us a very systematic analysis on problems that faced by Jeju province. So the goal that we have is the same, but the way to achieve the goal are varied. And also the government has been very conservative. That's what makes the situation very difficult. And also Aisaka Jo, a correspondent from Japan, how do you run municipalities? Does it have a legal entity? And how do you elect the head of the municipalities? Yes, as I mentioned earlier, yet there are 500 municipalities with a legal entity. About 5 years ago in Japan, Heisei era was one of the issues back then. The central government provided incentives for municipalities to encourage the municipalities to merge together. And at the southern part of Namana Prefecture, there's a small village. And it was just so small, too small to be merged with other counties because of a poor financial situations. So that small county could not even choose whether or not to merge with other counties to be part of the metropolitan provincial system. It was so difficult back then to encourage those municipalities to merge together. Looking back those days, I thought that local systems among different municipalities vary, and thought that the central government cannot unilaterally push ahead with what they want to do. In Japan,
자치단
For the time being, you try to have the wide range metropolitan city to encompass all the small cities inside. Yes, true. In Osaka City, that was one example. So about 2 years ago, they had a referendum to get their opinions about what they are thinking about the excluding Osaka from that kind of attempt. That means anyway, the residents, they have real to decide the decision and the destiny of their own city, right? And Vice Governor Go, what I'm thinking very unfortunate for us now is that we can have wide range of consensus, whether it be including these administrative entities or research entities and others. Maybe even if it takes some time, we don't have to have trials and errors to gather all the right opinions and to go the right way. Maybe the process itself, because we didn't have that process rightly, that's why we have so much criticisms outside this special province. That's why in the revision of the law and also in other part of the process, we have to set some process to gather more opinions from the relevant stakeholders and residents. I think you have to consider that part as well. Like you said, in the process, there were lack of participation of the relevant stakeholders. A while ago, we had a poll targeting the residents about the 4 of 10 respondents said they don't know much about the policies in these special province. That means even if we try to go forward to go to the autonomous government, for the purpose of the happiness of the residents. That's why, as you suggested and pointed out, we have to have some venue to gather the opinion of the residents and also stakeholders. That is really critical part. We also recognize the importance of getting consensus or opinion from the relevant stakeholders. And as you pointed out, we try to have a higher standard, the standard of excellence, to get most opinions from stakeholders. So anyway, so I was broadcasting one of the public affair related program in the media outlet when we just started the special self-governing province related act coming into effect. So compared to that point, we have enhanced understanding and recognition about what we are going to do in having this self-governing province. That's why in the way forward, we have to gather more opinion from the stakeholders. So from in that sense, how about the council member Lee? We have some minutes spare. I want to ask you some questions. Still, we have gaps in understanding and opinions about the environment protection and the development. So how to resolve the conflict that we have among citizens and residents?
yes, there's always uneasiness and conflict among stakeholders. Developers want to develop, and environment needs to be preserved. And to enable to do that, there's a conflict between different laws and also even a physical conflict among people. And Jeju province needs to think this way. I personally think environment yes, it can be preserved if we just leave as it is, but sometimes economic power can help us protect environment. Without economic power, they cannot think of preservation of environment. And by attracting more capital, and they sometimes need to think about businesses that can generate a profit to preserve environment. So I think we should not be one-sided in terms of perspective towards environmental preservation. If we have more economic power and if we get the subsidy from the tourists to help us use that money to preserve environment, then we can protect environment. So I think we should think in two ways, not one-sided. And also, Jeju, a provincial resident, need to accept what needs to be accepted, needs to be comprehensive, needs to be inclusive. And that's my personal idea. Yes, excessive environmental protection, excessive development should be avoided. And you mentioned that we need to strike a balance between them, and also economic support and systemic support is needed to protect the environment. Yes, the 16th, the Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity. We have talked about the revision of the special act on Jeju province. Yes, at the time, due to time constraint, we were not being able to cover much. But to recall what we have talked about, when we talk about overhauling the special act, means when that special act takes effect. I think there have been many changes when we first enacted the law and then now that we are going to revise the act. And of course, there were errors and mistakes which made us overhaul this act. So at the various level, we need to be open-minded to communicate with each other and to put our heads together. That way, we can come back onto the right track with the revision of the special act. I think we are hopeful. Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for participating in today's session.
수고해주신 자장님.
Thank you for the participants, the panelists and moderators. Please give them the round of applause. We will have a break time, and the next session will be started from 3:20. Thank you for your participation.